Thanks, Nisa. I'm delighted to be joined by Guilhem Chaumont from Flowdesk. Hey, Guilhem, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about the markets today. Bitcoin's open interest is still on the rise and surpassing previous all-time highs. What's this being driven by?
So it's very interesting because the last time we discussed about open interest, there were already a huge surge in the open interest driven by derivatives, and it was very interesting, to wonder whether or not this will continue. And for July, it's definitely continue. We have like new all-time highs, USD wise, BTC wise, we're a little bit under still. Basically, it's the same story. It's institutionals are trying to get exposure to Bitcoin through various ways. What we see on the futures is that the premiums are already quite high. So options are a very good way to get exposure to Bitcoin.
Yeah. So CME shares have been down 50% after a 10x increase since May. And so it looks like the institutionals are looking at short-term options with close strikes. What is that a fair assessment? What do you think is happening there?
Yes, so about CME, it was really crazy because in May and June the volumes just went up to around 400 million USD of open interest. What we see in July is that this is a little bit down, and when we look at the strikes, actually it's all between 10 to 20k, but not higher. And it's mostly calls exactly the same way it was in June. So we have actually a ratio of around 10x between the calls and the puts. So what this means basically is that people trading there are obviously a bias to the upside. And in terms of prices, they don't target a huge bull run, but more a slow increase of 20% during the next month. At least that's what they're betting on.
Okay. And so, we've been talking for a couple of weeks about, Bitcoin do something. The price has been, relatively stable until a couple of days ago. We had a bit of a price movement. What's going on with the volatility? Seems really low.
Oh, so volatility in July was just like it was the first thing that we saw. Volatility, the realized volatility was below 20%. In July, right before the huge rush that we are witnessing right now. So that's actually lower than the 3 months realized volatility on the S&P 500. So it looks like Bitcoin itself is like becoming a stable coin. At least that's what we thought, before we witnessed the $2,000 rush that we are into right now. So I mean, this is both positive and negatives. Most of the observers would say that this is positive because volatility is good to reassure people to invest in Bitcoin, to use Bitcoin as a mean of payment. The truth is, in July, this low volatility has more or less negatively impacted the actors in the market, especially us as market makers, because we need volatility to do trading. So I would say that low volatility is it's good for Bitcoin in the long term. But definitely in the short term, it's still a speculative investment device. So at the end of the day, volatility is good, but it's really interesting to see that volatility all in is always getting lower and lower, and Bitcoin is more or less tending towards digital gold in many ways actually.
Interesting. So we spoke earlier about a large portion of CME options being in the money. What did you mean by that? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So yeah, basically when we looked at the picture of the options on CME last month, it was interesting to see that most of the options were out of the money. We had around 1.6% of the options in the money, which means that in terms of sensitivities to the markets, the sensitivities were null, basically. Right now, it's a complete different story. Because of the moves we've seen in the last 3 days, we have 35% of options, calls actually, that are already in the money. So I think this is a good sign of what can happen in the next days in terms of volatility in the markets, because now these portfolios, they have a huge delta sensitivities to the market. And in terms of re-hedging, some things will definitely happen, despite that the open interest are still a bit lower than last month. So with the settlement that's coming in the upcoming days, I definitely think that this is something that should be watched because we're going to see some great stuff, along the moves that we see on the spot markets.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me again for another RFQ. We'll have you back in a couple of weeks and see what the market looks like then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.